has the honor of calling up the woman of the hour, Dr. Ochoa, to the stage. She's going to share about her last mission into air.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today, and I want to first of all thank Hector Lora for inviting me. Thank Principal Barker and all the teachers and staff of the school, and of course all the elected officials, because education was the most important thing to me, for me to be able to have the career I have and to be able to become an astronaut and go into space. And it's just wonderful how much the community here is supporting education. When I was your age, though, it really wasn't possible to dream about becoming an astronaut. At that time, there was only maybe 15 astronauts in the whole country that had ever been selected. They were all men, so no women, no astronauts of color. There was really a very small group of people that had ever had the chance, and only maybe a half dozen or so had ever gone into space by the time I started, say, 4th grade. And a number of years later, when I was selected as an astronaut, I had the chance to go on 4 space shuttle missions. And so on my 3rd and 4th flights, I was part of building the International Space Station. So that space station is in orbit today. We've had astronauts on board continuously for over 22 years. So you really have grown up in a time when we are a spacefaring nation, where day after day they're up there performing science experiments that you cannot do here on the surface of the Earth. What I wanted to do was narrate a video for you that shows you a little bit about my 4th and final mission into space that was part of building the International Space Station. Here we are down at the launch pad. This is in Florida, and this is me and my crew heading out to the launch pad. Yeah, I'm waving there. Here are the main engines on the space shuttle, and once they're up and running at 100%, then the rest of the solid rockets launch, and we're launching into space with a lot of acceleration. I'm kind of the person in the middle there. There's 2 people in front of me, the commander and pilot, and then my job as flight engineer was to support them during the launch. Here you can see all the elements, the orbiter itself. That orange tank is filled with liquid fuel, and then the white rockets on either side are filled with solid fuel. And you really need all of those up and running to get you off the launch pad and to get you into space. Another view of the 3 main engines that run on liquid fuel. After about 2 minutes, the solid rockets have used up all their fuel. They separate away, and then we go the rest of the way on the liquid fuel. After only 8.5 minutes, we're traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, and we're orbiting the Earth every hour and a half. And during the first day and a half of our mission, we're getting ourselves into the right trajectory to be able to rendezvous with the International Space Station, which of course was already in space. You see a view of our shuttle, and that piece of equipment that takes up most of the payload bay is a piece of truss structure that we are going to add to the space station. Here's the space station's on top here, and the shuttle's on the bottom, so this is the point where the 2 vehicles make a connection. Our commander was very happy with his manual flying, and a couple hours later we opened hatches and met up with the commander of the space station. There were already 3 members of the space station who had been in space for 4 months, so I think they were happy to see some new faces. There were 7 of us on our shuttle crew. And we started right into work. Some of that was to transfer supplies. You can see you can hold it in your hands and also between your knees when you're floating between the shuttle and the space station. And then the next morning we really got to work on the major task. I was operating the robot arm that you see there in the upper left and using it to pick up this truss structure, which we called S0, to move it into position to add it to the International Space Station. Here's another view of S0. You have to not be distracted by the views of the Earth behind you, in this case the Nile River in Egypt and the Gulf of Aqaba in the Middle East area. And here we're finally moving it into position, so you see part of the space station with S0 behind it. And then one of the space station crew members, Dan Birch, and I were the two people operating the arm. So once we attached it, over the next week as we were docked, we did a series of 4 spacewalks. All of them were supported by the robotic arm, and so I was inside operating the robot arm where some of my crewmates were outside. And these next few views are from the cameras on the helmets of the spacewalking crew members. You can see they're looking down at their hands, holding equipment, in this case a cable tray that weighs maybe 200 pounds on Earth but is weightless in space. They had to make a number of cable connections, some of them providing power, some of them giving us the ability to use a computer to command the equipment and to get data back. And then this is what it looks like when they come inside after a space walk and take off their suits. Here are some other views. This is inside the space shuttle where we had the space station crew members come over and join us for a meal. This is one of my crewmates, Rex Walheim. He was having a video conference with his 2 little kids back on Earth and showing them what you can do in microgravity. This is what happens when you let water loose in the middle of a cabin, and it forms that sphere because surface tension takes over in a microgravity environment. At the end of a week, we completed all of our tasks. The truss structure was attached, it was operating, and it had power, and it was now time for us to undock from the station. So our pilot, Steve Frick, was at the controls for this, and our job was to move about 400 feet away, wait for sunrise, which you saw happen there, and then do a complete fly around of the station, taking photographs that we would use for the next mission to come up and continue the assembly. So this is what the station looks like when we're about halfway around. And you can see some of my crewmates taking photos and also using a laser ranging device to make sure we're keeping the right distance away. Here's the final view that we have. That dark rectangle in the center is the piece that we just added to the station. Then we spent a day checking out all the shuttle systems that we were going to need for re-entry back to Earth. And now this is the final morning of the mission. We're closing the payload bay doors in preparation for coming back. And of course inside we're getting into these special suits that we use that can help protect us in certain kinds of emergencies. And now here we are coming back through the atmosphere. We're getting ready to land. We're actually over Florida now. And you can see, if you can see some of that, some of the heads-up display shown on the left, we're going 290 knots. On the right, we're passing through 12,000 feet. And now we look a lot like an airplane, but we don't have any engines running, so we're really more like a big glider, and we are going to land. So the trick is to land at the right spot and the right speed. And here's the final part of re-entry. As you can see the landing pad there. Coming in, we dropped the gear at about 300 feet. And the commander, Mike Bloomfield, is actually flying the shuttle at this point to make sure we land safely. There's the touchdown, and now you'll see a drag chute come out, which helps us have a safe rollout on the runway down in Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And that was the end of our 11-day flight, known as STS-1000.